This video is still referring to solving literal equations. So what's different about these problems versus yesterday, at least with some of these, is we're going to have to do some factoring out. We're going to get some cases where your variable, you're going to have it like with two different terms, and we're going to have to factor that variable out. So we'll see a couple of those today. So I think problem 16, 17, and 18, you're not really going to need to do that. You can solve those pretty much the way that you did the ones on the other side of the assignment. But 15, 19, and 20 is going to take something a little different, and we'll have practiced some factoring out before we get to these. So of the three, I think I'm going to show 15 and 19. I'd like you just to try the best you can with number 20 after that. But if you follow along, you get free answers on these two, and you get good examples to help you with some of the others. So in number 15, we're trying to solve for a. So right now it's in the denominator. We really don't want it to be down there. So what we'll end up doing is we will first, we're going to, remember we solve these in reverse order of operations. Another way to think of it is usually the things furthest away from the variable are actually what we get rid of first. So we're gonna have to multiply, but we also could subtract that b. So of the two, subtraction would actually come later in order of operations. So when we're balancing equations, since you're really kind of doing problems in reverse, we're actually gonna get rid of that b first. So I'm gonna do minus b from both sides. So now these are out. I'm left with m divided by a over z minus b. So now at this point, I don't want to have a down the denominator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply by a, which will undo dividing by a. And if it helps to put it as a over 1, you can do that. If I do it to the right side, I'll do it to the left side. And everything is going to be multiplied by a, not just the first part. So I do everything times a. So these factor out. I'm just left with m. And over here, I have a, and I could actually distribute. But in this case, since I want a alone anyway, if I distribute it, I'm going to get az minus ab, which is actually making it worse. But just keep in mind, think of this z minus b as really being one factor, because a is being multiplied by both of those at once. So to undo multiplying by z minus b, I'm going to divide by z minus b. And again, we're just thinking that is one factor because in those parentheses together. So all of this factors with that. And then over here, we have to divide by the same thing, z minus b. I don't really need the parentheses because this long fraction bar is already telling me they're kind of in a group. But if you wanted to do parentheses, you certainly could. So in the end, a is just equal to m over z minus b, what we're looking for number 15. We'll clear that one off and look down at number 19. So we're solving for x. Notice there's an x on both sides. So I only wanted one side or the other. So what I might do is I might do a minus 2x to both sides. I'm sorry, yeah, that is correct, minus 2x. So over there, I've left with just the 4. And over here, I can think of this as, now they have xg. I might rearrange that to say gx, which is still the same value. It's not really going to change the answer, but I think it might just be a little easier to see what we're trying to do. And typically when we have variables, we oftentimes put them in alphabetical order anyway, so I'm not sure why they did gx anyway. So this is what I've got. So this is where we're going to do some of that factoring. So as you look at these, both gx and the minus 2x have x as a factor. So I can say, I'm going to factor the x out, put it outside the parentheses. This is like sometimes we call undistributing. It's like the opposite of distributing. So, well, what times x makes gx? Well, times g. So I'm just going to put the g there. And I'd say, well, what times x makes minus 2x? Well, minus 2 would do that. So I factored the x out. And the way I could check that is if I went back and checked, x times g is gx. X times minus 2 is minus 2x. So I have undistributed, or I'd factored out the x. So now at this point, we can think of x as being a factor, and this combination of g minus 2 as being the other factor. So right now, g is being multiplied, I'm sorry, x is being multiplied by g minus 2. I want to get x alone. So the opposite of multiplying by g minus 2 is to divide by g minus 2. I'm going to divide by all of it. And here again, I could do parentheses, but that long fraction bar is implying that they're in a group anyway. So I do that to both sides, g minus 2. So these factor out. I'm just left with just the x. And over here, I'm just going to have that 4 over g minus 2. And I said this in the videos yesterday. You might think, oh, well, 4 and 2, we can factor those down a little bit. But if I can't also simplify the g at the same time, if I can't simplify all of it, I'm not going to simplify any of it. So I'll just leave it like this for now. So x equals 4 over g minus 2. Number 20, I'm not going to solve it completely, but I will try and help you get a start. So first thing I would say is we don't want to have a in its denominator. Also, if there's an a up here with a 1, well, I could just simplify those a's out, but there isn't one there. If I can't simplify the a with both terms, I'm not going to do it at all. So I would start by multiplying both sides times a. And what's going to happen is it'll just factor out here on this side. And then over here, I will have AG. So there's the first step. And then from there, I'll have you go, because from this step on, it's pretty similar to question 19, which I just showed.